And now we discuss the trilogy, aka Game 2 of Wild Card Weekend, and that is the Minnesota Vikings and the Green Bay Packers. Now, both of these teams have faced each other. They faced off last Sunday. Minnesota needed to win to get in. Green Bay needed to win to assume the number 2 seed and get the first round bye. Minnesota was on a mission. They had beaten Minnesota the week before, they beat Houston the week before, and they were sitting at 9-6. So all they needed to do was win, but they had to beat Green Bay, who was on this rip and tear, and they had just clinched the NFC North. The 49ers were embarrassed by the Seattle Seahawks, which bumped them down to the number 3 seed, put Green Bay at the number 2 seed. So all Green Bay had to do was win, and they got that first round bye. Funny thing happened on the way to Minnesota. There's this guy. He actually has my first name too, which is awesome. He was kind of chasing this little record that's kind of been around for a little under 30 years, held by some guy with a really super cool Jerry curl and them big goggles. Of course, we all know we're talking Adrian Peterson chasing Eric Dickerson's single-season rushing record that he's held since 1984. He needed 208 yards to break the record. He came up 9 yards short. However, in doing so, and grinding out and just trampling all over that Packers defense, the Packers defense slipped up one time, and this is all Minnesota needed. On third down, Capers, I don't know what defense he called, but that secondary was not paying attention, and Christian Ponder finds Michael Jenkins all by himself on a 3rd and 11, for 20 yards. And then Peterson rips off his final run of the regular season, which they all thought he broke the record, but he was short by 9 yards. But it was just enough to give Blair Walsh, the NFL record holder for most field goals of 50 or more yards in a single season, gave him a chance to kick the game-winning field goal and not only get Minnesota into the playoffs, but to bump Green Bay down to the number 3 seed, because their loss, coupled with the 49ers beating the Arizona Cardinals, bumped them down to the number 3 seed. And so we have today's matchup. So this isn't the first time that division rivals have played each other in the postseason for a third time. You got to go back to 2007 when the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants played each other. The Cowboys won both regular season matchups, yet failed to them in the playoffs. And then again, 2009 with the Dallas Cowboys again, but this time it was the Philadelphia Eagles, and they swept all 3 games. This time, this is the rubber match, because you have Green Bay, who had already beaten Minnesota at Green Bay, and you had Minnesota losing to Green Bay at Green Bay, and then you have Minnesota beating Green Bay at Minnesota. This game is played at Lambeau Field, and you're thinking, well, since you already called it, Green Bay's going to win. Before I even get into that pick, let's just go ahead and break these two teams down. Of course, these two teams are familiar with each other. Hell, they play each other twice a year. But the main thing is that the Minnesota Vikings got hot when they needed to. Chicago started slipping, and they beat Chicago at Minnesota and assumed pole position for that number 6 spot. Adrian Peterson is a machine. This man took a bad knee injury. This man took a hit from a helmet to his knee. Wrecked his knee. It wasn't just an ACL tear. I mean, he had 2 ligaments torn in that thing. And, of course, as a running back, you need your legs. But this isn't just any ordinary person. Adrian Peterson is a freak of nature. And whoever his surgeon and his rehab specialists were, tremendous people who deserve recognition. They need to, matter of fact, everybody needs to get their business cards. Because everybody thought he was going to be out the entire season. Everybody thought he was going to be out at least until November of this season. Not only did he come back for week 1, come on. He almost broke the single season rushing record. And I know everybody was talking about Peyton Manning and his return and his neck surgeries. And yes, he deserves recognition for what he's done since he came back. But the Denver Broncos wouldn't be in the post, or wouldn't necessarily be in a bad situation because they made the postseason last season with Tim Tebow. They won a playoff game with Tim Tebow. The Broncos have been in the playoffs and they won their division last season. The Vikings were 3-13. And if it wasn't for the fact that Adrian Peterson got hot, super hot, like pretty much after week 7, they'd be sitting at home right now. Because Ponder went ultra cold. He went sub-zero over the last few weeks. Like his gameplay hindered a lot of what Minnesota could do and almost cost them games. But it was Adrian Peterson running as hard as he did, carrying that team on his back like Boxer and Animal Farm with no glue factory, that got Minnesota to where they're at. They went from 3-13 to 10-6, a +7 win differential. That team is nowhere without Peterson, and everybody sees that. Everybody sees that. He is my candidate for MVP. I don't care what anybody says. If they want to do co-MVP, they want to give Manning the Brett Favre treatment to give him all the awards, that's fine. Do that. But Adrian Peterson deserves to be up there too. Not just Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers and every QB you can think of. But that man, Adrian Peterson, he deserves recognition as an MVP. Because that team is nowhere without him. And he carried that team into the playoffs. Now, having gone on my rant, the Green Bay Packers. We all know who they are. We all know who they're led by. Aaron Rodgers. That kid, and I say kid, hell, he's the same age as I am. That man is damn good. You saw, like I said, if you watch the Cincinnati-Houston video, you know I alluded to the fact that he went into Houston, they marched into Houston, and he lit them up for 6 touchdown passes at their house while they were the hottest team in the NFL. He just shredded them. So we all know what he can do. We know he can get his receivers locked in with him. James Jones, Greg Jennings, Randall Cobb, Jordy Nelson. He has weapons. That's not a question. He has his weapons. And then defensively, they got some good news. They're getting Charles Woodson back. And with Clay Matthews coming back, B.J. Raji, Tramon Williams, I mean, basically, they're starting to look a little bit more familiar to the Packers defense that they had earlier this season. But we all know this is going to be a very physical matchup. This is going to be a very tough matchup. This is not going to be a blowout by any stretch of the imagination. If they score more than 20 points apiece, I'd be shocked. They might. Well, I'll take that back. Green Bay could do it. Minnesota, I don't know. Minnesota would have to play some sick defense on them. So my pick in this case, yes, Minnesota has run hard with Peterson. They charged into the playoffs with Peterson. Ponder made just enough plays to get them in as well. But Minnesota's kryptonite is outdoors. They are 0-4 this season in outdoor games. Take a guess at where they're playing today. At Lambeau. Now, having said that, Lambeau hasn't exactly been the place of intimidation. There used to be this huge aura about Lambeau Field. You had a playoff game and you had to travel to Green Bay, you were screwed. That's until Michael Vick, and was it 2004? Put it into that. Oh no, 2000 was it 2002? It was 2002. Yeah, it was 2002. He put an end to that. And ever since then, Lambeau Field hasn't really exactly been a place of intimidation. The Giants have gone in there left in like 2 times in a row and have come out with a victory. Their last one was just a total ass whooping. But nobody's scared to play Green Bay at Lambeau. However, having said that, Minnesota's dismal outdoor record has me leaning towards the Packers. So, Green Bay. I'm picking the Green Bay Packers to win this game in the march to San Francisco. And I should have mentioned this earlier, so let me get this out of the way. AFC. I'm going to talk a little AFC real quick, and then I'll get back to this. AFC. Cincinnati wins. If Cincinnati wins, they travel to Denver. If Houston wins, they travel to New England. There's no other way around that. Lowest seed plays the highest seed. The lowest seed that advances plays the highest seed. The highest seed in the wild card round that advances plays the highest seed that has the bye week, the number 2 seed. NFC wise, the Vikings win, they travel to Atlanta. The Packers win, they travel to San Francisco. I'm picking the Packers to travel to San Francisco. It's an outdoor game. You know the Packers are pissed off the fact that they let that home field, or not home field, they let that first round bye slip, and they let their division rival into the postseason. So they want to make them pay. And Aaron Rodgers wants to be G'd up for this game. And he's going to be. He's going to be amped. So, Peterson, you're my MVP as far as I'm concerned. Comeback player of the year as far as I'm concerned. But your magical run stops here. Green Bay moves forward. They move on to the next round to play San Francisco. So, those are my picks, folks. I know I didn't have as much to say about these two teams as I did Cincinnati and Houston, but I think we're familiar with them because we just saw them last week, and I think I already explained a lot about what I thought was going to happen in Week 17. Reverse that, who I think is going to win from Week 17 to now, and you have my pick. So, Green Bay at home, I like them a lot better than Minnesota on the road outdoors. So, there it is, folks. Wild Card Weekend Night 1. So, stay tuned. And I've said so many times, you probably could have drank or made a drinking game out of it. So, see, there I did it again. Tune in tomorrow, where I will have my picks for Wild Card Weekend Part 2. And that is the Indianapolis Colts at the Baltimore Ravens. And quite possibly the most exciting matchup of Wild Card Weekend, Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks versus RG3 at the Washington Redskins. So, again, drink. Tune in tomorrow. Adrian Mason, out.